who he is and what he represents. And that's because Satan is the father of lies, and he cannot deal with truth. He cannot deal with truth because truth just shows lies for what they are. So he always has to attack the world by misrepresenting who Jesus is. And sometimes that filters into our life and we start doing the same thing. And so the last thing is we have to be, as Christians, being open to the idea of that Christ can do amazing things in our life, right? Because we're going to see again today that the people were astonished. And I think sometimes, especially when you're raised in church, we start to lose the ability to be astonished about God working in our life. And because faith says, I believe he can do all things, right? So as we go through the rest of this chapter, what are the three things of faith we have to remember? Faith is, first of all, just a mental acknowledgement or assent that something's true. But then it has to move where? To the heart, where you start trusting. In other words, sometimes it doesn't make sense, but if I know you can do it, so I trust you will, because you promised. I don't understand how. So when Paul says we walk by faith and not by sight, is he talking about mental assent or trust? Mental assent is always reasonable. You can explain it. But trust, it's by faith and not by sight. I trust you even when I don't understand. And then what's the third part of faith that you're always going to see and Christ calls for? Action. It has to move from your head to your heart to your feet and your hands. All right. So with that being said, he's just got done dealing with the Pharisees on this issue about eating without washed hands. And he says, let's talk about really what defiles a person. And it's not an outside problem. It's an inside problem. And that's going to be the nature of his discussion now here in chapter 7 and verse 14. Okay? And after he called the multitude to him again, he began saying to them, listen to me, all of you, and understand. It's interesting. Listen, and then what? Do a lot of people listen and don't understand? Is it possible to understand without listening? No, but could you listen and never understand? Now, sometimes when we talk to our children, did you hear me? Yes. So did you understand what I was saying? And then you find out, no, they didn't. Okay? So there's a difference. And Jesus is talking about that. He said, listen to me and understand. There's nothing outside the man which going into him can defile him. But the things which proceed out of the man are that which defile the man. And if anyone has an ear to hear, let him hear. And when leaving the multitudes, he had entered the house, his disciples questioned him about the parable. And now he said to them, are you lacking in understand also? Did they hear what he said? But did they understand it? So some things we have to go back and look at it more carefully because they were walking with Jesus and they still did not get it. It says, do you not understand that whatever goes in the man from the outside cannot defile him? Because it does not go into his heart, but into his stomach. See the contrast? Not to the heart, but the bowels of you. And it is eliminated. He just, in one sentence, described the whole biological process of eating and elimination of waste, right? And thus, it says, he declared all foods clean. And he was saying, that which proceeds out of the man, that is what defiles the man. Because what comes out of a man, in verse 21, it comes from within. It's not an outside job, it's an inside problem. It says, out of the heart of men proceed the evil thoughts, fornications, thefts, murders, adulteries, deeds of coveting, wickedness, as well as deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. All these things proceed from within and defile the man. Here we're going to understand really, the heart, the definition of sin and where it comes from. So what he says here is, it's not what you eat can never make you spiritually unclean. Does that make sense? We don't even really have to talk about that, does it? Because it's just what? It's just food. And so we see that thus he declared all things clean. All food. Were there spiritual laws about clean and unclean foods in the Old Testament? Yes. Did Jesus annul those, or did he fulfill them? Because annul them is to discard them. He'd be guilty of breaking the law, right? But he's fulfilled them. Yes?
Getting to a more true understanding.
Exactly.
Of what's happening.
Because the Old Testament is to teach holiness, and there's certain things that defile you, and Jesus is bringing it to the forefront. It's really sin that defiles you. And I'm here to make you clean and make you pure so you can have a relationship with God once again. And so it's not about food anymore. And that's why Paul said, don't let anyone judge you about what you eat or what you drink, okay? But he says, it can't defile you because what's the big reason? It doesn't go into your heart. Now, that's not your muscle that pumps blood. It's that the real individual who you are. And so here he gives this list of things that come out of the heart. And when you look at it, I don't want you to just pass over and go, oh, that's good, right? But what's the first word that comes out of the heart? There it says. Evil. Evil thoughts. So does every person have the capacity to do that which is wrong or evil? And we've been talking about that in our Sunday morning lessons, the spiritual battle that's within us. And the world doesn't even want to deal with the concept of evil and call something evil, because then you have to acknowledge there's right and there's wrong. And then if there's right and wrong, then we have a system of morality, and then we have absolutes. So then we're going to have to start telling people, no, you can't do this, you have to do that. But we live in a morally inclusive society, right? That everything's okay. And so the reason that you did some of these things is why? If you're not listening to what Jesus says here. If you can't acknowledge evil, if you can't acknowledge sin, how would you explain some of these behaviors? Murders, thefts, adultery. How would you explain them?
Well, at our age, they always try to explain it by you had a rough upbringing, natural things, you got an extra chromosome, you're missing.
All right, that's good. It's not your fault. It's because you had a dysfunctional family. Now, we don't want to be naive. Does upbringing make a difference in how you live as an adult? Yes. We carry all those things with us. But do we still have a choice in how we're going to respond to them? That's right. You have to be an overcomer. And so then they'll say things like that. It's a mental disease. You have a disease, period. It's really not your fault that you do all these things, because we don't want to acknowledge someone can do wrong. Yes?
At the same time, I hear what you're saying, but don't discount those things.
Don't want to.
Because they're very valuable sometimes, and what really did occur. It could be physical.
Right. We can go to two extremes, saying everything's because everyone's evil, and the other extreme, there's no evil in all. It's just dysfunctional problems in society, lack of education, and we can fix it. No, it's in the middle. We have to nuance it and not go to both extremes. But Jesus is saying the reason you have these things in society, because they come from where? The heart. Now, that comes from the fall of man. Because when God was done creating the world, what did he say? It was very good. And it was just a short little while that he said the thoughts of men were on evil continually. And the saddest verse perhaps in all the book of Genesis, God said he was sorry that he made man. All right? That's the fallen nature of man. And now, it doesn't mean we have inherited sin. It doesn't mean we have this moral depravity. But we do have the capacity to sin. And the rest of the fight that we deal with, our spiritual struggles, is really in our minds, in our hearts. And it's all a matter of choice. Let's look at some of these things. Take these sins of the heart. Here is the list. But I want you to see the connection between the old and the new. Because, yes, we don't follow the Ten Commandments. But every one of these Ten Commandments deals with an issue of the heart. And so I'll go to this one last, but When he says, thou shalt not murder, that's the 6th commandment, right? Out of the heart, men proceeds evil thoughts, thefts, murders. Where does murder start, according to what Jesus is saying? Now, he taught that in Matthew chapter 6 as well, or Matthew 5, that you've heard it said, thou shalt not murder or kill. Well, yeah, we teach that. It's 10 commandments. And Jesus said what? What did he say? If you have anger, hatred towards someone, you're guilty of the same. Because why would you kill someone? Well, often it's because of anger or lack of respect for who they are. And so he's addressing the issues of the heart that's going to affect the hand. And just because you said, well, I never killed anyone, but you might have slowly put them to death because you didn't help them when you could have. And so murder, slander. What is slander?
Demeaning someone or putting someone in a lower position
All right.
than they truly are.
Speak evil.
Attacking their credibility.
Okay. So Ann and I were on the road listening. This one guy was talking about boastfulness and slander. Boastful is exorbitant lifting up of yourself, right? It's undue praise. You know, here the fish was this big, but when you're done telling the story, it's this big. Boasting, there's always an element of truth, right? Generally it is, or else you can't sell it. Well, slander is the same thing. It's over the top description of someone else, and there's usually an element of truth of what they did, but you make it worse because you're trying to destroy that person, the image that you have of them, and that's why I'm telling you these things about them, how terrible they are. And so he says that comes from where? The heart. We don't have a proper attitude towards one another, so we will speak evil of them. And that's where evil thoughts come from. Then he says, thou shalt not commit adultery. Well, look what he says here. Where does adultery or fornications or sensuality come from? The heart. Now, this was a tough one. And Lord willing, next week or the week after, we'll talk about in the morning sermon. There's an intimate connection between the real you and your body. Because the real you is a what? Yeah, you're a spirit that has a body. You're not a person that happens to have a spirit. You are a spirit. And a spirit has no flesh, right? No flesh and bones. But we're living in a physical body. And that physical body has desires. Who gave them to us? God did. Are they good or bad? They're good. The choice is, though, that my body has such strong hormones running through it. It has such great desires for pleasure that certain things will trigger those chemical reactions in the body. And the real me, the spirit, I have to decide whether I'm going to act on them or not. And that choice to give over to the body rather than control it, where does that choice take place? He says in the heart. And anytime someone says, well, the devil made me do it, they're excusing themselves, saying, I was not in charge. And Jesus said, no, it all starts right here. Because you chose to, because that's what you've given yourself over to, or you haven't mastered your body yet. Yes?
Under the Jewish law, when adultery was committed, they had to be basically caught in the act. And Jesus expounded upon it and said, if thou even thinkest in your heart, you committed the act.
Exactly.
And so he made it even more strict,
He-
because they were avoiding the true issue of the heart.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, it's more restricted, but he's just trying to point where it starts again. You're just as guilty of it. That's right.
When you throw stones at this woman before she was to be stoned, if you haven't committed the sin, then,
That's right.
well, what happened? They all left.
So when he says, thou shalt not steal, what does envy do? What is envy?
Makes you want what the other person has.
Yeah. And,
Is it a form of covetousness?
oh yeah, we'll put it over here too.
Covetousness, I think, covers a whole scheme of it all. It's that.
We're going to get to that.
It's really that evil
That's right.
desire within you that causes you to not act like God would.
That's right. And I'm glad you said it, because we're going to get to it. Envy is, yes.
In the situation
Yeah.
They did that to test him to see when he was saved.
Right, you're back on this one, right? That's right. But envy is this feeling of displeasure because you have something that I want and I don't have it. And so when that takes hold of a person and you're not able to control it, it leads to someone stealing often, doesn't it? I mean, people don't steal what they don't want. They usually steal what they don't have and they want, right? Unless they're doing it just for they're a kleptomaniac. That is a real disease condition, going back to that. But that's what Jesus is saying. These all come together. Bearing false witness, that's in court. But that has to do with, deceit, he says. Slander again. It comes from this heart that I will willingly discredit you, even to see you be imprisoned or having some judicial wrath come upon you, just because I give you no value. And I will lie about you in court. Where does that come from? It's not from the outside, it's an inside problem. And so when we look at these things, who is Jesus talking about? All of us. We all have to wrestle with these things. Josiah. It's exact same word. When it's translated blaspheme in the New Testament, it's used speaking evil of God. When they translate it slander, it's speaking evil of your fellow man. But it's the same word. It means to speak evil of, right? Yeah. Anne mentioned this. Thou shalt not covet. And really, that's we don't use a lot of biblical words in society, but we use covetous. We use that word every now and then. People do. They covet. What's coveting? What is it? Well, that's, okay. Want something that's not yours, but it's a little stronger than that. Yes, Wayne.
Well, related to envy,
It's really related. It can be. Mm-hmm.
greed,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately self.
Okay.
Selfishness.
And I'm going to go back to what Ann said. It's really the heart of all these things, because what's the very first commandment? No other gods. What's pride? What does he say? Where does pride come from? I think it's in this list, right? Where is that? Right there, pride. What's pride?
Putting yourself on top.
Is that an assault on the deity of God? Is it making yourself above him? Isn't that what the problem of pride is? I want to be the Lord of my own life, and I will not bend the knee to you. Isn't that our battle, all of us? When he says no other gods, why did they have fake idols? I mean, because they're fake gods. Because they didn't want to submit to God. They wanted to have their own God that could do what they want to do, right? It's all about self, really, is what it is. It's not because they acknowledge some other power. It's they wanted to be control of these gods. And he says no other gods, because the heart of idolatry is covetousness. Something that you want becomes a godlike desire. You want it more than God himself. And so you'll do anything to get it, whether it's lie or steal or commit murder. And so the heart of many of these sins, if not all of them, as Dan said, is a heart of covetousness. I don't want what God wants for me, because I think I know something better, when in the truth he's offering us the blessings and the riches of the world, isn't he? Of the universe, of heavenly. And that's why he says, just trust me. And that's our battle, the evil within. Yes?
And that's where my thought went to Paul when he wrote Romans. He said, for I do what I do not want, but I do the very thing. He was talking about that internal battle, all of us.
That battle, Romans 7. That'll be in 2 weeks' lesson. It's a war with the members of our flesh.
We never escape it.
Yeah.
And that's where pride goes through all. We think we've escaped it. I've beaten it. And once we think we've beaten it.
That sneaks up on us again, doesn't it? Yes.
Jack, would it be fair to say covet is closely related to a strong desire or lust?
Yes, it is. But lust is just a strong desire. So this is an exorbitant where it becomes dominant in your life. It becomes like an idol. Now, there's a lot of things that are good in the world, But when they become godlike things, that's idolatry. That's the essence of idolatry. When I sacrifice my allegiance to God to pursue these things, well, that's covetousness, okay? Not that they're bad things. Satan usually uses good things to get us to covet, doesn't he? Right? So, there's the battle. And a lot of challenge there, isn't it? And Jesus is trying to get to the heart of the matter. It's not stuff to the outside. It's the real battle's right here, isn't it? Now, I think a great illustration of that is going to be the Syrophoenician, I can't even say her name, Syrophoenician woman. Thank you. It's going to be one of those mornings with one of those words. He gets up and he goes to the region of Tyre. Now, what has the whole discussion been up into this? Clean versus unclean. What's Tyre in the area of Sidon? What is that area? Is it Jewish land? No, it's Gentile. Is this clean land? No. And the Pharisees said you could not go in and eat with a Gentile because you're eating with a dog. That's what one of the rabbis would say. This is unclean people. And where does Jesus go after this discussion? Right into this area. Now, because here's the area of Galilee all the way up into Phoenicia and Tyre and Sidon. And that's a land of the unclean. And perhaps he's making a point to show it's not that which is outside that'll defile you. It's that which is inside. And I'm here to save everyone and make everyone clean, not just Jews. But we're going to have some challenges in this text because he goes up there and it says he entered a house and he wanted no one to know of it yet. He could not escape notice. So we don't know why he went up there. Now, let's back up. In Mark, he went across the other lake for what reason? Remember? They needed a break. How did that work out? No, when they all heard he was going there, they beat him there, and there were so many people that he had to get on a boat to talk to them. So maybe some suggest it says, we're going to go up to Phoenicia. No one's going to follow us there. All right? He just needed a break. We're going to see his humanity when he sighs in this passage, this text. He sighs, that the word groans. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's because he's trying to teach a lesson. We don't know for sure, but he's going there. He didn't want anyone to know. But his reputation as an amazing teacher and a miracle worker has preceded him, and they already know about who he is. All right? Now there, it's about 50 miles to the north. And now Matthew 15, I don't want to read it, but Jesus said there he's only sent to the lost house of Israel, Jews. So it kind of gives you the idea he's not there to teach them necessarily, but is he going to avoid doing that given the opportunity? Of course not, all right? So just want you to have that kind of background. So he goes up there and he entered a house and he wanted no one to know of it, yet he could not escape notice. I just have to say that. ESV says he could not be hidden. I hope that jumps out at you. The only place Jesus can be hidden is in our own lives. But Jesus, the man, the Son of God, you cannot hide who he was and what he did. I mean, people have been trying to do that and dismiss him and bury him and keep him buried, but you cannot keep Jesus a secret. He has turned the world upside down from the time he walked on this earth. It's never been the same. And the big conflict between evil and good is between Satan and Christ. That's what it is. And our choice is, are we going to follow him or not? You can't keep Christ hidden. And we have to be proud and bold about that too, that we should not be ashamed. And the power is on our side. The victory's already been won. Let's just go ahead and realize you can't hide Jesus. So why should I even try? And I'm going to talk about him. Yes, I'll be loving and I'll be kind. But you can't hide him. You can't put him away in a closet. We still have to deal with him, and people do. And so it's just amazing. He could not escape notice. Can you imagine that? Did they recognize him by his physical appearance? Did they recognize him by his name? Did just the message come out, hey, we saw Jesus, he's coming our way? I don't know. But they couldn't Keep it a secret. And after hearing him, a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit immediately, isn't that our word? Fell at his feet. And that word fell is a strong word, that she threw herself to the ground. And she was a Gentile, it says. And what else does it say? A Syrophoenician woman. Okay, I got it right that first time. And she had a daughter who has demon possession. Let's just list some of the problems this character has right on the outset. What's her first problem? Disadvantage, I'd say. Before that, she's a woman. And I'll put Gentile, that's the next thing. Because women would not approach men, especially a Jewish man, a rabbi or a teacher. No way. It's just, you don't do that. We see that in John 4. Remember the Samaritan woman? He said, why are you talking to me, a woman, right? It's disgraceful. It breaks all etiquette, especially because she's a Gentile, an unclean person, and here he's a Jew, right? What else? She speaks Greek. From the area Phoenicia, probably that's where she was raised. And we don't have any mention about her husband, I don't know, but she's got a problem with her daughter, right? Demon possessed, right? And the gods of that area, that harkens all the way back to Elijah and the big battle of Mount Baal, or Mount Carmel that took place, just south of this area, they couldn't do anything for it, right? So she, with all these strikes against her, a woman, a Gentile, unclean, with a demon-possessed daughter, just comes and falls before him. Matthew says she was so persistent, the disciples said, get out of here, you're bugging us, right? But she wouldn't give up. Yes? Desperate. It's very important because desperate people often fall into despair. Right? Now, what's the difference between desperate and despair? Despair is when you what? You give up. Desperate is different though. Yes, Barbara.
I was just wondering if, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, it's like she's a woman, would another negative be that it's a daughter that she's concerned about as opposed to a son? And
Oh, yeah, it's a female. Yeah, they don't have much value in society either.
okay, so
Right, right. No, we have to give you that, yes.
She don't have nothing to lose, and she knows, so she stays with it.
Well, and I'm glad you're saying that because what we're going to do is put a chart of what great faith is. And great faith is seen in desperate times with what you do out of your heart. All right? Even though it doesn't make sense, it violates all the rules and the norms. It doesn't matter because I know what you can do in my desperate situation. So she falls at his feet and she kept asking. That's a persistence. She's not going to stop, even though this is not protocol and it's not according to the custom of the time. And it embarrasses her societally, right? She's embarrassing herself just by her actions. But she's more concerned about her daughter.
ESV says she's begging, not just asking.
Begging, that's what the word is. Pleading. Please, 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 please. All right. So this is where it's tough, and so we have to talk about it, and then let's read it first, and then we'll talk about it. So he was saying to her, verse 27, let the children be satisfied first, for it's not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. Ouch. That might be your first reaction, right? But she answered and said to him, yes, Lord, but even the dogs under the table feed on the children's crumbs. And he said to her, because of this answer, go your way. The demon has gone out of your daughter. And going back to her home, she found the child lying on the bed, the demon having departed. All right, so quite a discussion we have here. First of all, let the children be satisfied first. Now, who's referring to when he says that? The Jewish, because he came to the Jewish people, right? And then he said it's not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. A lot of time people would say, oh, Jesus is being racist right here. Because he's calling this Gentile woman a dog. It's just a heart of racism. Do you think that's the heart of Jesus when he just talked about where uncleanliness comes from? It comes from the heart, that he'd turn out and exhibit it himself? So we have to define his statements in another way, and we can do that, yes.
I won't go into it, but the first thing I did is try to find what the definition of dog was.
And what did you find out?
It's a whelp, a puppy.
All right, it's...
So he didn't say a scoundrel dog or a stray dog, he said a puppy.
Because dogs largely roamed the streets and they were varmints. They weren't like our pets today. But this is the diminutive term for dog. It means a little puppy. And they would keep them as house pets until they got too big and you're out of here, right? But isn't there something about puppies? They're what? What are all they? I don't care if they're mutts. Puppies are always cute. Just like everybody's baby is cute. All right? It's just they grow up. And that's the word he's using here exactly. That helps us. And he's just being matter-of-factual. He said, listen, lady, I'm a Jew, and I'm here for the children of Israel. And it's not fit to take that which is earned by the father and feed it, not to the children, but to feed it to the puppy. Even though we love the puppy, the children come first. Is that disrespectful? But he's saying, I'm not here for you. I'm sorry. I'm not here on a healing mission. I'm not here for the Gentiles. I'm just up here to take a break. But does that stop her? Now, here's what a lot of people would have done. How dare you call me a dog? Could have responded with pride, right? Because you just assaulted my pride, calling me a dog. How dare you? But did she go there? See, that's part of the things that come out of the heart. It's not going to help anything. She acknowledges what he says. I understand you're not here for me. I understand perhaps I'm just a woman who's a Gentile. But then what does she say? Lord, even the little puppy eats the crumbs that fall from the children's plate or when they drop them to him, right? Said, all I need is what? A crumb. There's this humble boldness about her. See, humility is the opposite of pride, isn't it? And he's really displaying these issues of the heart. That pride's not going to get you anywhere. It would have kept her daughter demon-possessed, right? If she would have acted that way. But since she acted humility, he said, you're right. You're absolutely right. But I'm not going to let that stop me. I'm in a desperate place, and I'm not going to give up. That's despair. Because I believe as much in your grace as I believe in my desperate situation. Now, a lot of people, they get so desperate, nobody can help me. What I've done, or Lord would never forgive me, or my problems are so great, they just give up. And you hear that a lot. How could God ever love me again? Maybe it's something they've done. That's despair. See, the problem with that kind of thinking is it puts more value in the problem than in the grace of Jesus Christ and his power. Yes, believe in what you've done and what's wrong and have the terribleness of the uncleanliness, but also believe in his grace. Does she believe in it? All I need from you, what, Lord, is what? A crumb. A crumb. And what does Jesus say? Because of this word, it's not, the word in the Greek is not answer, but it was an answer or reply. He said, because of what you've said, your daughter's healed. Did he have to go there? Did he have to say anything? What did he say? Just because of what you've said, she's healed. In Matthew's account, he said, I've never seen such great faith. O woman, great is thy faith. Yes.
This seems like a really tangible example of how it can work psychologically and emotionally for us to counter all the joy when we fall into various trials, earlier trial and this kid.
Yes.
And that was the impetus to cause her to reach in and take a step and find faith.
That's right.
That's the mechanics of how that works.
That's right. And the preacher already said, I don't know if you heard her, she said, there's no greater trial than dealing with a sick kid. It's probably right there on the top, isn't it? And so desperate times lead to bold actions. But yet she still maintains this humble faith too, even though it's bold. Yes?
This reminds me a lot of the centurion's servant who got healed.
Yeah.
He recognized Jesus' authority and said, you don't have to go there.
So, yeah, you don't have to go. Just say the word.
Say the word.
Yes.
It seems to me Jesus' first response was almost a test for this woman.
It seemed that could be. Mm-hmm.
Let's see how far you're willing
To go. Yes. It could be that. Yes, Josiah.
I'm glad you brought up before about missing things. I haven't missed this my entire life, but people are traveling the Jews, or the Gentiles.
Mm-hmm.
Never noticed the word first. He's
Mhm.
saying that we're only going to teach the Jews.
Right.
Teach them first.
Right. That's a good point. It doesn't say Jews only, just Jews first. Yep, that's exactly right. So, a powerful message here. And so let's just talk about great faith. Is her request short? What is she asking? What is she asking? What is she asking? Heal my daughter. What does she ask the next time? Heal my daughter. What does she not stop asking? Heal my daughter. I mean, this is what great faith is. I'm just, heal my daughter, that's all. Just short. Is it humble? Where is she all this time? Maybe not all of it, but where does it start? Falling down in a prostrate, worshipful position. And when you talk about humility, it's interesting. One writer said, only when you're able to admit that you're a dog under the table can you become a child at the table. Isn't that not true? Until we recognize our own sinfulness and our own unworthiness, and we come to Christ with that type of humble heart, are we willing to receive, are able to receive his grace that'll make us clean and make us worthy to sit at the table? And that was the problem with the Pharisees that's going to come up in the next chapter, because their big problem is self-righteousness. They're not willing and able to be humble. Is she trusting? Does she know how he's going to do it? Does she ask him to do it a certain way? Come. All she's just asking is what? Heal my daughter. Heal my daughter. And there's fervent, as Phoebe pointed out. It's modest. It's respectful. It's rational. I mean, you have to love her argument. She doesn't take offense to what she says. She just comes back with reasoning, right? You know, even the dogs get a crumb. Just give me a crumb. Is that reasonable? Yes, it's amazing. And she's relying on his mercy because she knows that in her position, she's not deserving. That's not the word I'm looking. She's not in line to receive it. That's what I'm trying to say. She's a Gentile, but it doesn't matter. She still perseveres. There's some elements of what? Great faith. Makes no sense here, but it makes a lot of sense up here because I know you can do it. So I'm just going to walk by faith, not by sight. I'm going to ask you to do it and let you work it out. Someone had their hand up. I didn't know who it was. All right. So Jesus then goes all the way from there, all the way down to Defiles. Now, we have 2 minutes, and we can do this one real quickly. This is a area of 10 cities. They're all Grecian cities. It's a multi-ethnic area of Jew and Gentiles mixed together. It's quite a trip because he was here. Come back. My little pointer just quit. Up there by the Sea of Galilee, went all the way up to Tyre, Sidon, and now he's going all the way back down to Galilee. And we find that when he gets there, he finds a man who was deaf. That means, of course, he couldn't hear. He spoke, but with great difficulty. We'll come back to this word later, because I'm going to run out of time. And what's interesting about this miracle is that they implored him to lay his hand on him, just touching, because they've probably seen that before. But Jesus takes him aside from the crowd. This is an interesting miracle because he just takes him and said, let's go over here. Now, usually his miracles are done publicly for attention to show the sign that he is the Son of God, the coming King. But here's something very personal. The second thing that's very intimate and personal about it, he puts his fingers into his ears. Why? His ears? Because he's deaf. And then even more so, he spits and he touches his tongue with his saliva. Why his tongue? He's having a problem talking. And looking up to heaven, there's this deep sigh. That's the same word in Romans 8. We groan within ourselves when we're praying to God, and our spirit the Holy Spirit groans with us. And here that very same word is used of Jesus, and everyone says, what is he groaning about? But you see his humanity and his compassion here. He groans. And he said, Epiphatha, which means it's Aramaic, and Mark is writing to Gentile readers who would not know Aramaic, which means be opened. And so we find immediately that his problem was removed. He's immediately speaking plainly. He tells them, don't tell anyone. But the more he ordered them to tell them, it says the more they continue to proclaim it. You can't keep Jesus secret or hidden, all right? And they were utterly astonished. He said he's done all these things to make well. He even makes the deaf to hear and the mute to speak. That's what these miracles were done is to produce great faith in you and me. So we can have the same astonishment. Keep that capacity to be in awe of Jesus. All right, that's chapter 7. Thank you.